Chapter 1: The Fall of a House. The gold-leaf pillars of the grand court of Sylvain glittered like the teeth of a lion, beautiful, opulent, and designed to swallow you whole. Aerin Valewind stood shackled in iron, head bowed, while the high nobles jeered from their thrones. He had imagined dying 100 ways since the day his second life began, choking on poison, falling to a blade, buried under the weight of his own ambition, but never like this. Not as a disgraced noble stripped of name and honor, with 1,000 eyes waiting to watch him squirm. The throne of judgment loomed above. And on it, seated like a marble statue carved from duty and regret, was his father. Lord Aerin Valewind, warden of the Eastern Flame, master of the city's southern holdings, and architect of Aerin's downfall. "Let it be recorded," Dorian said, voice clear and clipped, "that Aerin Valewind is hereby stripped of his title, lands, and inheritance. For dereliction of duty. For reckless endangerment of our bloodline's legacy. And for conduct unbecoming of a son of Sylvain." A wave of murmurs and satisfied sneers swept through the court gallery. Aerin didn't raise his head. He didn't have to. He had been here before. Not this hall. Not this lifetime. But he'd stood in another court, white walls, cold steel benches, fluorescent lights buzzing overhead. He had stood in a courtroom where he was called Eric Walker, a disgraced systems engineer, testifying against his company in a corruption scandal that had left thousands jobless. He had stood alone there, too. And he remembered dying. The carriage accident that ended his first life hadn't hurt, at least not physically. But waking up in this world as the only son of a cold, calculating noble family had been a different kind of agony. Magic. Nobles. Castes. Shards. A world that clung to ancient power as if innovation were sin. He had studied it all. Hidden his knowledge. Bided his time. But not like this. By the writ of the high thrones, Dorian continued, still looking past Aerin as if he were nothing but another name on parchment. "You are sentenced to exile. You shall be taken to Red Harbor. There you will remain. Without title. Without protection. Without inheritance." Dorian rose. And in that single moment, as the court's robed attendants stepped forward with their ceremonial chains, something strange passed through his gaze. Their eyes met. And Dorian, the coldest man Aerin had known in 2 lives, reached subtly to his own chest and tapped once. To the nobility, it was meaningless. To the Valewind bloodline, it was an ancient code. Asterisk live. Remember. Asterisk. Aerin blinked. And then the chains closed. They paraded him through Sylvain like a traitor. Banners fluttered in the wind, silver and green, the colors of a realm that had turned inward, safe in its hollow perfection. Children threw stones. Nobles spat from balconies. He was not just disgraced, he was entertainment. Somewhere along the walk, beneath the stone bridges and arched cathedrals, Aerin tilted his head up. 3 lives, he whispered to no one. 1 dream. Let's see what I can do this time. The guards didn't notice. They wouldn't have understood even if they had. He wasn't talking to them. At the city gates, rain began to fall. Aerin stood on the cracked stone platform beneath the high outer arch as an old merchant caravan rolled forward. His chains were loosened just enough to walk. The guards shoved him toward the lead wagon. "You'll ride with the livestock," one sneered. "Seems fitting." Aerin didn't respond. His gaze lingered on the fading silhouette of Sylvain's towers. The memory of a glowing screen, blue light reflecting off glass. His hands on a keyboard. Equations. Engine schematics. Artificial minds learning from code. This world didn't even have steam engines. "Not yet," he whispered. And then, louder, as the chains clinked. "This is not my end." Chapter 2: Shackles and Sovereignty. The wagon creaked with every bump in the muddy road. Cows brayed. Rain soaked the wood. And Aerin Valewind, exile, disgrace, and supposed failure, sat chained between 2 barrels of spoiled apples and a goat that kept trying to chew his sleeve. It was a long fall from the marbled halls of Sylvain. Aerin leaned his head against the splintered wood and closed his eyes. For a moment he let himself exist between breaths, not the exiled heir of a crumbling house, not the disgraced engineer of a forgotten world, but simply a man in a storm, still alive. Still alive, he murmured. Still good enough. The wagon jerked suddenly, nearly tossing him sideways. The driver, a thick-bearded Neil of a man, barked over his shoulder. Well, you ain't dead back there, are ya, Lord Broken? Not yet, Aerin said, calm. The man spat. They traveled for 2 more days through bogs and old cobbled trade roads until the smell hit them: salt, fish rot, wet timber, and old blood. Red Harbor. Even in ruin, it had a presence. Black walls of moss-eaten stone. Broken towers sagging toward the sea. Ships that looked more like skeletons than vessels swayed in the docks below. End of the line, the driver called. The city gates loomed. Marshal Ryvek waited inside. He wore a patched red cloak that might have once been military, but now just looked like something forgotten by history. His eyes were hard. His jaw clenched. He looked at Aerin like he was some stray dog that had wandered in through the rain. So, Ryvek said, arms crossed. They really did it. Send you here. The Crownless Sun. Aerin gave a slow nod. Marshal Ryvek. I assume you've read the writ. Ryvek sneered and held out a scroll, dried despite the rain. He unrolled it, reading with a theatrical sigh. Exile of the High Court. Aerin Valewind, formerly heir of House Valewind, is sentenced to live under permanent civil disbarment in the province city of Red Harbor. His voice slowed. With inherited administrative right in accordance with Shard Charter 17 Aleph? Aerin smiled faintly. That part surprises most people, he said. You're telling me they exiled you, and gave you control of the place they dumped you in? Aerin tilted his head. It's an old law. Forgotten by most. Under the Shard War Reconstruction Edicts, any noble sentenced to civil exile may claim stewardship of a fallen Shard holding, so long as they're the last legal heir associated with it. Red Harbor was once Valewind land. That law was written 200 years ago, Ryvek snapped. And never repealed. Aerin's smile sharpened. Unless you want to write to the court and challenge it? Ryvek looked like he wanted to punch something. You'll die in a week. Maybe, Aerin said. But until then. He raised his wrists, the chains glinting in the torchlight. I'd like the keys. The silence was long. Finally, Ryvek snapped a gesture to one of the guards. Unbind him. The chains fell. The goat bleated once, then promptly relieved itself on the wagon floor. Aerin stepped into Red Harbor unshackled. The manor was worse than he expected. It sat at the edge of the city, surrounded by weeds, half its roof collapsed, the gates hanging on rusted hinges. He stood before it, soaked and tired, while Morik Dren, one-eyed, smirking, and mildly drunk, sauntered up the road toward him. You actually came, Morik said. I did. You actually used the law to take command. I did that too. I like you? Aerin looked at him. You're drunk. And you're the poorest lord I've ever seen. Aerin smiled. For now. They stood in silence a moment, thunder grumbling in the distance. I have no men, Aerin said. No gold. No allies. Morik shrugged. You have me. For a time. Aerin nodded. Then let's begin. In the shadow of ruin, before the city that had forgotten how to dream, Aerin Valewind stepped through the gates of his ancestral shame and whispered to himself, in a language no one here remembered. Version 2.0. Chapter 3. Red Harbor's Welcome. Rain fell like it was trying to wash Red Harbor off the face of the world. From the cracked ridge where Aerin stood, the city unspooled in layers of rot and ruin. Sagging roofs and broken walls leaned like drunks against each other. Sea mist choked the alleys. Rust-covered chimneys coughed smoke that smelled more like burning fish guts than fuel. This was no exile. It was a sentence. A punishment that pretended to be mercy. Aerin descended the muddied stone path, boots already soaked, as the shattered gate of Red Harbor creaked open without ceremony. The guard stationed there, an old man missing 2 fingers and most of his teeth, didn't salute. He didn't speak. He just stared as if trying to decide whether this was real. Marshal Rivek waited in the square beyond, his red cloak tattered and wet. His expression hadn't changed since the last time Aerin saw him, which, to be fair, was less than a day ago, but it felt colder now, calcified. He gestured without a word, leading Aerin into the old watchtower that had once served as a city hall. The interior smelled like mold and old ink. A single rusted chandelier swung overhead, creaking on a frayed chain. "Sit," Rivek barked. Aerin sat. Rivek remained standing, arms folded, rain still dripping off his shoulder plate. The man's eyes were the kind that had seen too much and regretted too little. "I don't care what papers you carry," he said. "I don't care what title was stapled to your exile. This city doesn't need another lord. It needs a grave." "Then you'll forgive me," Aerin said calmly, "if I don't die in it." Rivek grunted. "You think you're clever. I've buried clever men before. I imagine you have. You don't understand what this place is." Rivek leaned forward slightly. "Red Harbor doesn't belong to nobles. Not anymore. It belongs to the gutter kings, the rat barons, the thieves and broken warriors who lost everything in the last war and came here to be forgotten. There is no law. Only debt, blood, and rot. I'm familiar with all three," Aerin said. A moment passed. "You'll last a week," Rivek said. "You're the second man to tell me that. Then you're halfway to proving me right." The marshal turned, grabbing a chipped bottle of something that might once have been wine from a shelf behind him. He poured a single cup and slammed it in front of Aerin. "One drink. Then you leave. You've seen the welcome." Aerin picked up the cup. The liquid inside was dark, thick, and smelled like burnt salt. He drank it in one go. When he looked up, his voice was quiet, but sharp enough to draw blood. "I'm not here to play Lord Rivek. I'm here to build a city that makes Sylvain nervous." Rivek didn't laugh. But his left eye twitched, either surprise or the ghost of a smirk. "You'll need more than wine and arrogance. I have ideas. I have patience. And I have nothing left to lose." The marshal gave a grunt. "Then I'll give you your first truth, Crownless. The manor's roof collapsed last winter. The south wing smells like piss and ghosts. You have no coin, no soldiers, and no friends. Everyone here already hates you, or will soon." "Perfect," Aerin said, standing. "Then I won't have to pretend." The door slammed behind him. The square was empty. Fog rolled through like a funeral shroud. He turned toward the manor, barely visible through the mist. Half its walls crumbled. Vines clung to broken windows. Somewhere within, water dripped in irregular rhythm, like a heartbeat that had lost its will to beat. Aerin exhaled once. And smiled. "You have nothing. No name. No resources. No reason to succeed. Asterisk. Good. Asterisk. Then I'll prove I never needed any of it. Asterisk." Chapter 4: The One-Eyed Swordsman. The manor creaked like it was alive, not in a comforting, rustic way, but in the way of something sick that refused to die. Aerin pushed open the splintered doors with a grunt, shoulder catching against the warped frame. Dust exploded around him in a soft wave, stirred from years of silence. The entry hall was little more than rotted wood, rain-stained stone, and empty frames where ancestral portraits once hung. One shutter banged in the upper level with the wind. It was beautiful, in its own way. This was once something. I'll make it something again. He barely made it 5 steps in before he heard the sound of a boot scrape behind him. Then the click of a dagger being drawn. Aerin turned slowly, to see a thin man in a hood standing at the threshold, knife already out. "Lord Valewind," the man said with mock politeness. "You weren't supposed to last this long." Aerin blinked. "Sylvain?" "Bran," the man corrected. "Though really, what's the difference?" Figures emerged from the fog behind him, 3, maybe 4. Knives, cudgels, no armor. Assassins of convenience. Aerin stepped back, searching the broken manor with quick eyes. No escape. No time. You could just walk away, he said. I could. But then I'd be poor. The dagger flashed forward. Aerin raised his arm, too slow. A blur cut between them. The assassin's knife jerked off course as a boot slammed into his gut, sending him crashing through the half-rotted doorframe. Aerin stumbled back, heart pounding. And there, framed by rain and broken moonlight, stood a man in a black cloak, wide-shouldered, stubbled, and grinning with a single glinting eye. The other was scarred shut. Well now, the man said cheerfully. Bit early to be dying, isn't it? The remaining thugs hesitated. The one-eyed man spun his blade, a short, worn saber with old blood on the guard. Unless you lot really feel like becoming fertilizer. They didn't. The would-be assassins vanished into the mist like rats down a drain. Only the first remained, groaning against a pile of collapsed timber. The swordsman walked up to him, lifted him by the collar, and slammed him against the stone wall. You tell Counselor Bran that if he wants to kill the boy, he'd better pay better. And send prettier company next time. He dropped the man, who crawled off without another word. Then he turned to Aerin. You all right? I'm breathing, Aerin said. Which I assume I owe to you. The man tipped his head. Captain Morik Dren. Former city guard captain. Current, well, let's just say I'm between loyalties. And why help me? Morik grinned. Because I hate Bran. And because I'm curious. Curious? What does a crownless lord do when the world shoves him into a grave? Aerin considered him. The blade was real. The timing was perfect. The eye wasn't just missing, it was replaced with a shard of blue glass, humming faintly. You were waiting. Morik didn't deny it. I figured you'd need a hand before the week was out. Aerin turned back toward the broken manor. The rain had eased slightly. I can't pay you, he said. Not yet. I have no army. No resources. Just a name and a broken city. Sounds like my kind of gamble, Morik said, walking past him into the manor like he owned the place. I'll take 10% of everything once you win. Aerin raised an eyebrow. And if I don't win? Morik shrugged. Then I'll sell your corpse for coin and take your boots. The one-eyed swordsman vanished into the dark hall beyond. Aerin remained at the door, watching the rain drizzle over the city that wanted him dead. His voice was soft but certain. 10%, he repeated. Of a city that doesn't exist yet. He smiled. Let's build it. Chapter 5, Bran's Bargain. The summons arrived wrapped in cheap silk and sealed with perfumed wax, an insult disguised as civility. Aerin broke the seal with a flick of his thumb. Asterisk to the exiled Lord Aerin Valewind, asterisk. Asterisk the Council of Red Harbor acknowledges your arrival. Asterisk. Asterisk we request your presence at dawn, to discuss matters of stewardship and mutual interest. Asterisk. Counselor Bran of the Salt Table. Mutual interest. Aerin read those words twice, then smiled. Morik, slouched in a half-broken chair beside the fireplace, eyed him over a mug of something steaming and vaguely brown. Let me guess. Bran wants to make peace. Bran wants me gone. Same thing, really. The Salt Table was once a merchant hall, but now smelled more like damp fur and vinegar. Its pillars leaned at odd angles, warped by years of salt air. Tapestries hung to hide cracks. The council table itself had legs reinforced with rusted anchors. Aerin stepped into the chamber flanked by no guards, no attendants, only the weight of rumor and expectation. Bran sat at the far end. Councillor Garras, the pot-bellied trade minister, loitered nearby. 3 others whispered in alcoves. Bran rose with mock warmth. Lord Valewind. Exiled Lord. Aerin corrected, stepping forward. Bran paused. Ah. Yes. How humble of you. Let's skip the pretense, Aerin said. You want me out. Bran chuckled, and gestured to a nearby chair. Then we understand each other. He poured a cup of dark wine and slid it across the table. Aerin didn't touch it, Bran continued, voice honey slick. Your arrival has stirred unrest. You are, technically, the chartered steward of Red Harbor. But authority, Lord Aerin, requires more than old laws and noble blood. It requires stability. Coin. Loyalty. I see, Aerin said. And you have all of those? Bran's smile didn't falter. I have enough of them to offer you a far better option. One you might actually survive. He gestured to a chest behind him. 2 guards dragged it forward and opened it. Gold. Clean and stacked in bars. The old currency, stamped with the sigil of Sylvain. 200 crowns in weight, Bran said. Enough to live comfortably anywhere on the coast. In exile, yes. But with privacy. Freedom. Perhaps even redemption in time. And what would I give you in return? Your absence, Bran said. Your silence. And the cessation of all claims to Red Harbor. We will formalize it with ink and seal. Aerin stepped closer. You're afraid. Bran blinked. You thought I'd be some broken thing. But now I have men watching the gates. Rumors spreading through the harbor. You feel it, don't you? He looked down at the chest. Then back at Bran. I don't need your gold. I'll take your city instead. Bran's expression curdled like spoiled cream. I tried to offer mercy, he said coldly. No, Aerin replied. You offered a leash. I don't wear them anymore. He turned and left. Outside, Morik waited against a pillar, chewing a dried figure. Well? They gave me a chest of gold. Morik's brow rose. And? I left it. The one-eyed swordsman grinned. Now that's the dumbest clever thing I've heard all week. That night, fires burned low in Red Harbor. But in the cracked manor on the hill, Aerin sat by candlelight, mapping the city's alleys with ink and patience. War had not been declared with swords. It had been declared with a bribe. And he had answered with silence. Chapter 6: Echoes of Ash. It began with a mouse. Aerin had been tracing the skeletal remains of an old bookshelf in the manor's west wing, brushing away cinders and rotted paper, when something skittered out from under a broken tile. He flinched. The mouse darted away and disappeared between a crack in the floor. He crouched. And noticed something strange. There, just beneath the blackened wood, was a square-shaped impression. Stone, not timber. A tile that didn't match the rest. Aerin pried it loose with the tip of his boot. Beneath it lay a staircase. Dust choked the stairwell, dry and fine like powdered bone. It clung to Aerin's hands as he descended, one careful step at a time, torch held high. The walls narrowed. The air grew colder. He emerged into a room, or what remained of one. A stone vault, buried beneath the manor. Half the ceiling had collapsed, and moss crept along the lower walls like a slow disease. But the furniture, a desk, a long central table, shattered shelves, told him this had once been a command room. A war chamber. Aerin's heart quickened. He ran his fingers along the desk's edge. The surface was cracked, but beneath it, tucked into a hidden groove, he found a bundle of oilskin-wrapped parchment. A seal, long faded, bore the sigil of his house. The original Valewind crest. Not the one used today. He unrolled the top scroll. Schematics. Not of buildings. Of supply routes. Ancient shard caches. Armory networks. Roads that bypassed the standard northern trade lanes and cut through what was now rebel territory. And at the center of it all, Red Harbor. Once, centuries ago, it had been a military logistics hub, a keystone in Sylvain's first western expansion. Not just a city. A linchpin. And then, deliberately, erased. Asterisk, someone buried this place. Asterisk. Asterisk, and with it, everything it could have been. Asterisk. He unwrapped the second scroll. Smaller. Scribbled. Likely a personal ledger. Supplies rerouted under order of Patrician Orlan. Asterisk. Perimeter silos sealed under Blackfire Protocol. Asterisk. Asterisk. No survivors from the Harrow Pact. Asterisk. Asterisk. Red Harbor must not awaken. Asterisk. Aerin's breath caught. The Harrow Pact. A term he didn't recognize. But written in the same ink were 3 words underlined twice. Never speak this. His fingers trembled slightly as he rolled the scrolls up again. Above him, dust shook loose. A floorboard creaked somewhere in the manor. Possibly wind. Possibly not. That night, Aerin sat beside the hearth in the shattered great hall. The fire crackled. Morik leaned nearby, sharpening his blade on a whetstone, glancing occasionally at Aerin's pensive silence. You find something? The one-eyed swordsman finally asked. Echoes, Aerin murmured. Of ash. Of ghosts. He looked up, eyes distant. This city wasn't just forgotten, Morik. It was erased. Smothered. Like someone feared what it might become. Morik stopped sharpening. Now why would they do that? Aerin stared into the fire. And whispered. Because it could rise again. Chapter 7, Blades in the Dark. Night in Red Harbor was not like night anywhere else. It didn't fall, it breathed. Fog slithered down from the cliffs, curling around gutters and alleys like a living thing. Lanterns flickered in defiance, but their light never reached past arm's length. Sounds echoed in strange directions. Laughter turned to screams too easily. This was a city that had forgotten what safety felt like. And Aerin had decided to walk it. You know, Morik muttered, following 2 steps behind. Most lords don't sneak into gang territory their first week on the job. Aerin kept his hood low, cloak wrapped tightly. I'm not most lords. No argument there. They passed a broken archway filled with squatters and torch-wielding children. No one stopped them. No one met their eyes. The way was already cleared. Word had spread that someone important was coming, and the rats had scurried to make space. Tell me again why we're here, Morik said. Because every city breathes through its shadows, Aerin replied. And right now, I need to know who holds the lungs. The old brewery had collapsed years ago, but the cellar beneath it had become something more, a haven of rusted blades and whispered deals. They entered without announcement. 6 figures looked up from tables made of barrels and planks. Some held dice. Others knives. And at the far end, beneath a tattered awning and surrounded by 24 sharp-eyed watchers, sat Lyra of the docks. Aerin had never seen a woman sit like that, as though the entire room existed at her sufferance. She wore a leather half-vest, loose trousers, and a necklace made of broken coin chains. Her eyes were green, sharp, and impossibly tired for someone so young. Bold of you to come here, Crownless, she said. Bold of you to address me first, Aerin replied. Lyra smirked. Let's skip the dancing. You want control. I have half the harbor eating out of my hand. Thieves, smugglers, black market scribes. You either buy me or bury me. I don't have coin, Aerin said. Then we're done. I have something better, he interrupted. He stepped forward and dropped a rolled parchment onto the table. One of the scrolls he'd found, not the ledger, but the route map. She glanced down. Her smirk faded. Where did you get this? You know what it is. My father died on a route like this, she said softly. Said it was cursed. Said Red Harbor was the gate to something the nobles never wanted opened. Aerin leaned in. I intend to open it. Lyra studied him for a long moment. The room held its breath. Finally, she sat back. And what do you want from me? Loyalty. Information. Access. I need your knives to stay sheathed when I walk these streets. And when I call, I want the city to whisper. And in return? When I take the harbor back, Aerin said, I'll build a new system. And you'll be part of it. Not in the shadows, but at the table. And if you fail? Then you can sell my corpse to Bran, he said, echoing Morik's earlier joke. Lyra chuckled once. You're reckless, Lord Crownless. But interesting. She stood, walked up to him, and extended a single finger, stained with ink. Touch blood, she said. It's how we seal deals down here. Aerin didn't hesitate. He extended his own finger. They touched. A spark passed between them, nothing magical. Just the weight of a bargain forged in the dark. Later, as they emerged into the cold night, Morik whistled low. You sure about this one? No, Aerin said honestly. She's dangerous. I hope so. He looked over the city. I'll need dangerous. Chapter 8: Smoke and Knives. There were no horns. No banners. No declarations of war. Just smoke. And knives. Aerin watched from the rooftop. The wind was stiff tonight, carrying the scent of brine and rust over the gutted alleyways of the Eastern Row. From here, he could see the curling alleys, the broken lanterns, the rotting stairwells. Beneath them, the den of the Gravelhounds, one of the last gangs Bran had allowed to operate with impunity, festered like an open sore. Men who ran protection rackets on orphanage routes. Who sold old shard fragments to children for coin, not caring what hallucinations they caused. Who took what they wanted and burned the rest. Aerin had given them one warning. They'd laughed. And now, smoke curled from the corner of the old tannery where Morik had planted the fire bombs, a distraction. The real strike came from beneath. The sewers of Red Harbor were little more than hollowed trenches reinforced with decayed masonry and the bones of rats older than most buildings. They stank of mold, urine, and iron. Aerin moved silently, boots whispering over the slick stone. Beside him, 3 of Lyra's hand-picked blades crept like shadows, gang cutters used to moving through death-soaked cities. Their target was a narrow crawl space that opened into the undercroft beneath the Gravelhound's supply house. 4 guards, one of the blades whispered. 2 drunk. 1 napping. Last one sharp. Aerin nodded once. Take the sharp one first. The knives went to work. A short, sudden gurgle. A wet thud. Then silence. Aerin stepped through the gap. The interior of the warehouse was dim, lit only by flickering oil sconces. Shard dust sparkled faintly in the air, the residue of illegal fragment grinding. The tables were stacked with jars, bones, and strange blue vials. Behind one of them, a boy no older than 12 stirred in the dark. Aerin froze. He wasn't part of the gang. His clothes were ragged, eyes wide with hunger. You shouldn't be here, Aerin whispered. The boy flinched. I just clean. I swear. Aerin turned. Get him out. The blades hesitated. Then, screams above. Gunfire. The firebomb had triggered a panic. Someone shouted. To the warehouse! It's a trap! Aerin clenched his jaw. In position. Now. The warehouse door exploded inward. Gravelhounds stormed in, some with swords, others with jagged tools. Their leader, a thick-armed man with chain mail and a butcher's grin, shouted a challenge. Only to meet the end of a bolt as Aerin's second team struck from the shadows behind them. A trap within a trap. Steel clashed. Blood sprayed. One of Lyra's blades went down with a cleaver through the chest. The leader turned toward Aerin, raising a massive maul, and froze. Aerin wasn't holding a weapon. He was holding a shard core bottle, volatile, glowing faintly red. Your life, Aerin said softly, isn't worth this place. Leave it. Or burn with it. The man snarled. Charged. Aerin dropped the bottle and dove aside. The explosion was contained, but brutal. Shardlight flared against the stone, fire catching the old timber. Screams. Ash. Collapse. It was over in minutes. The Gravelhounds scattered. Their leader died half buried beneath the rubble. A few of his thugs bled out in the alleys. But the boy hadn't made it. They found him near the storage crates. A piece of timber had fallen across his legs. Blood soaked the floor beneath him. Aerin knelt beside him, chest hollow. The boy looked up, eyes glazed, whispering one last thing. You were supposed to save us. Then he was still. Aerin stood alone for a long time after the others had gone. Morik found him eventually, leaning against the wall beside the smoking ruin. You won, the captain said. Aerin said nothing. Morik lit a pipe. Blue smoke. This won't be the last time, you know. If you start cleaning the city, some dirt always bleeds. Still, Aerin didn't speak. You could have walked away. Taken Bran's gold. Left the rod alone. I know. Morik exhaled again. Then why? Aerin's voice was barely a whisper. Because if I didn't start now, I never would. Later that night, in the manor's darkened study, Aerin opened a new page in his ledger. He didn't write names. He didn't track gold. He wrote only one thing. One child. One ghost. One memory too many. He closed the book. And made a silent vow. Asterisk next time, I will save them. Asterisk. Chapter 9, Blood Oaths. The city was quiet after the fire. Not peaceful, Red Harbor had never known peace, but watchful. Word spread like heat through the gutters, carried by whisper and shadow. The gravel hounds were gone. Their leader's skull had been cracked open on a broken crate, and their hideout reduced to char and smoke. And it wasn't the guard who had done it. It was the Crownless Lord. They said he walked among flames with a shard bottle in one hand and a death warrant in the other. That he made no demands, only offers. That he paid in silver or ruin. Aerin stood at the top of the manor's staircase, staring out over the city. His eyes followed the old rooftops, the sagging towers, the broken alleys still slick with last night's blood. One gang down. 7 more to go. He needed leverage. Organization. Loyalty. He needed a system. The gathering took place in the old temple of Veira, long abandoned, its walls stripped of all sacred emblems, now little more than a roofed ruin. But the acoustics remained excellent. Flickering braziers lit the center floor. Around them stood 6 figures, gang leaders, smugglers, slumlords, and killers. Most had names whispered in curses: Three Finger Selk, Nana Soot, Casker the Brick, Whisper John, Mira Dusk, and Thrail the Half-Wolf. Some brought knives. Others brought bodyguards. Aerin brought only words. You're all here because you know what I did to the hounds, he said without preamble, voice steady. You can see what happens when chaos runs unchecked. Casca spat. So what, you're building a city guard? Gonna tax us with a smile and call it order? Aerin shook his head. No. I'm building a kingdom. And I'm inviting you to rule part of it. The room shifted. Even Nanasut looked up from her cloud of pipe smoke. You get to keep your districts. Aerin continued. Your coin. Your networks. But from this night forward, you answer to me, or you don't exist. He reached into his coat. Pulled out 6 slips of parchment. Slid them onto the table. Terms of charter. You each get territory, recognized by my seal. In exchange, you enforce my peace in your streets. No slave trade. No shard blood sales to minors. No public killings without sanction. And what if we refuse? Whisper John said, voice like velvet on a knife's edge. Aerin didn't respond. Morik stepped forward from the shadows and dropped a sack onto the table with a wet thump. It rolled open. Inside was a severed hand, still wearing the hound's signet ring. Then I start over, Aerin said. With your replacements. Silence. Then Mira Dusk laughed softly. Clever boy. You're giving us what we already own, with a leash. Not a leash, Aerin corrected. A ladder. He pulled a thin blade from his coat. Slid it across his palm without flinching. Blood welled. One by one, he held the knife out. I don't need your friendship. But I need your bond. Swear with me here. As equals in purpose, if not in name. They watched him. And one by one, they stepped forward. 6 leaders. 6 blood cuts. 6 drops into the brazier. The fire sizzled and flared red for just a moment, as if the city itself had felt the pact. Afterward, as the last of them left, Morik leaned on a nearby column and smirked. You just made pacts with 6 murderers. I made pacts with 6 survivors. Aerin replied. You really trust them? No. But I trust their self-interest. He reached into his coat and pulled out a folded map, new, hand-drawn, with color-coded districts now marked not as gang territory, but as provisional zones of civic influence. Morik squinted. You just gave a name to a turf war. No, Aerin said, tapping the center of the map, where the manor sat like a black sun. I gave them reason to look upward. Later that night, Lyra appeared on the manor's rooftop beside him. She said nothing at first. Just watched the lights of the districts below flicker one by one as torches were lit in the fog. You changed the game, she said eventually. I had to. And what do I become in your new kingdom? Aerin looked at her and offered a single word. Necessary. The first stones of a kingdom are not gold or law. Asterisk, they are the people willing to bleed beside you. Asterisk. Chapter 10, A Serpent's Smile. The manor was quiet the morning Lady Sarah Valkyrin arrived, too quiet. The streets outside had been swept. Rats were paid to vanish. Bran's spies had vanished without a whisper. And at Aerin's request, even Morik wore something approximating clean clothes. You're preparing for a dignitary, Morik muttered as he straightened his half-fastened coat. Or a funeral. Perhaps both, Aerin replied. Lady Sarah arrived not on foot, but in a 3-horse black coach with golden trim and a personal escort of Sylvain knights in mirror-polished armor. They rode through Red Harbor's battered gates as if through a conquered province, heads high, eyes forward, spears gleaming. The contrast was almost comical. Shattered rooftops loomed over them. Mud splattered their banners. At least one child mooned them from a window. But they didn't flinch. They had come not to conquer. They had come to confirm that Aerin Valewind was still a boy playing with bricks and blood. Lady Sarah stepped from the coach like it was a throne. Her dress was green silk edged with silver, her earrings shaped like coiled vipers, and her smile sharper than the blade hidden in her sleeve. A gracious host, she said, inclining her head just enough to avoid disrespect. An honored guest, Aerin replied with the exact same tone. They stood like statues at the gate of the manor, each weighing the other. Her perfume was expensive, something laced with crushed frost blossom and memory root, which only grew in the royal greenhouses. Her gloves, thin leather, bore no visible rings, but the faint shimmer along the seams told Aerin she was carrying at least 3 shard pins for defense. He gestured to the courtyard. Shall we walk? Of course. I do so love ruins, she said, voice light. They walked beneath shattered arches and along the cracked garden path where weeds now claimed the marble. I imagine the harbor feels different than the courts of Sylvain, Aerin offered. Like comparing a gutter to a fountain, Sarah said sweetly. Fountains overflow, he replied. Gutters endure. She raised an eyebrow. That almost sounded poetic. I've had time to think. They stopped beside a crumbling statue of an old Valewind hero, now missing half its face. I have a proposition, Sarah said, tone shifting like a blade unsheathed in silk. A generous one. I'm listening. You're a clever man. But clever men often drown in clever dreams. So I offer this: withdraw your claim over Red Harbor. Let the council resume administrative duties. In exchange, the House Valkyrin will grant you a stipend, a country estate, and political immunity. Aerin didn't answer immediately. He walked around the statue. From this angle, its broken side revealed a carving, almost erased by time, a sword shattered in the chest of a crowned figure. You offer peace, he said slowly. So long as I remain irrelevant. Sarah's voice was warm. I offer survival. The more power you claim, the more danger you invite. You don't want to be caught between Bran's knife and Sylvain's hammer. Then I should be the fire. Her eyes narrowed slightly. This is not a game you can win. I'm not trying to win, Aerin said softly. I'm trying to rewrite the board. He turned to face her fully now. You walk into my city with armor and gold and perfume, speaking the language of threats dressed as kindness. But Red Harbor doesn't speak that dialect anymore. A smile ghosted his lips, faint but real. You speak in silver. I speak in ash. She looked at him for a long moment. Then, slowly, she returned the smile. Well, she said, voice cool, at least you'll make an entertaining footnote. She turned on her heel and walked back toward her coach. Morik appeared from behind a pillar, chewing a sprig of bitterroot. Pretty one, he muttered. She'll try to kill me soon. You think? I'd be disappointed if she didn't. You planning to kill her first? No, Aerin said. I'm planning to make her think she's already won. Then I'll burn everything she stands on. Morik grinned. Now you're sounding like a lord. Some enemies fight with blades. Others with smiles. The trick is knowing when to smile back. And when to sharpen your teeth beneath it. Chapter 11, Silent Markets. 2 nights later, the first stalls went up beneath the collapsed aqueduct. No signs. No fanfare. Just crates, ropes, and lamps hung low to avoid aerial patrols. The old water tunnel had long since dried up, but its cavernous belly now hosted a different kind of flow. Trade. Aerin walked the newly christened Ash Market at midnight, Morik and Lyra flanking him. Smugglers sold rare herbs. Relic hunters hawked scavenged shard fragments. Forgers, bookbinders, salvaged machine part traders, distillers, and illegal mapmakers all bartered quietly, not with coin, but in a new form of token backed by a promise. The Broken Lord's word is iron. That's a bold phrase to stake trade on, Lyra muttered. Aerin watched a merchant slip one of the tokens, a stamped copper disc with a shard crack motif, into a hidden drawer. It's not about what it's worth now, he said. It's about what it'll be worth when we win. The rules of the Ash Market were simple. No killing. No slavery. No raw shard blood deals. Everything else? Open game. For every sale, a fifth went into a locked vault beneath the manor, the first true tax of Red Harbor's rebirth. You're creating an economy off the books, Morik said. The council will scream. They already are, Aerin said. He passed a scribe selling old Sylvain scripts rebound with secret cipher layers. Past a widow with 3 children quietly dealing dried fish behind a drape of tanned eel skin. Then, something unexpected. A sculptor's stall. Shards carved into animals. Faces. A tiny likeness of Aerin himself, sculpted in obsidian and scrap wire. He paused. The sculptor bowed. Didn't mean no disrespect, she said quickly. Just thought the children might need to see who's giving them bread again. Aerin took the little figurine, held it up, and laughed softly. It's terrible, he said. The sculptor nodded. Well, I'm better with cats. He placed a silver token beside her basket. Then make sure the next one claws. By the time the night ended, Aerin had walked every aisle of the market. Not as a ruler, but as a shadow among shadows. Back in the manor, Morik poured himself a drink and tossed a coin up and down. She'll hear about this. Lady Sarah? Aerin asked. She'll choke on it. Good. Aerin stepped to the balcony. Below, the aqueduct shimmered with faint shard light, traders still shifting goods beneath the moon. Now the city pays me to exist, he murmured. Morik raised his glass. To silent markets. Aerin raised his hand. To louder victories. A kingdom begins not with walls, but with whispers beneath them. Chapter 12, Fires of Loyalty. The Red Harbor Guard was not a single body. It was a carcass, carved into pieces by bribes, drained by fear, and left to rot under rival captains who answered more to coin than command. They had stood by while gangs ruled the alleys, while merchant caravans were raided in daylight. They had watched as the city bled, and charged a tax for the privilege. Aerin intended to change that. With fire. And a sword. The plan began with a name, Captain Everloric, commander of the Eastern Watchtower and Brand's most loyal military asset. Morik called him the Drunk Knight. Lyra called him the Gutless Worm. Aerin called him a symbol that needed burning. The ambush was timed for dusk. The ash blades, Aerin's new elite unit handpicked from Lyra's agents and former soldiers, moved with practiced silence. Under Morik's direction, they infiltrated the watchtower with forged clearance orders and bribes too perfect to refuse. By the time Morik realized what was happening, he was already in chains, dragged before his men in the courtyard beneath a sky streaked with red and orange. Aerin stood before them, unarmored, bare-handed, voice clear. Your captain's soldier honor. He sold your names. And when Red Harbor needed you, he gave silence. No one interrupted. Aerin turned to Morik. Sword. Morik handed him a blade. He turned back to Lorik. Kneel. The man didn't move. So Aerin cut behind his knees. Lorik fell, screaming. The blood on stone was dark and steaming. You are not worth my court, Aerin said. And then, without ceremony, he drove the blade into the man's throat. The courtyard was silent. He turned to the guards. You have two choices. Kneel now, swear to Red Harbor and not to gold, or leave and be hunted. Dozens of eyes stared back. Then, one by one, they knelt. By morning, banners bearing the new tide-marked sigil of Aerin's house flew over 3 towers. The Red Harbor Guard was no longer a mercenary mob. It had become something else. Morik stood beside Aerin as they surveyed the courtyard, now cleaned of blood. You really stabbed a man in front of 60 armed soldiers. I did. You're either brilliant, or a lunatic. Aerin turned to him, eyes hollow but steady. I'm building something that cannot be bought. Chapter 13, Rats and Swords. The docks of Red Harbor never truly slept. They creaked and muttered in their sleep, heavy with salt and secrets. Aerin walked them in silence, the smell of dead fish and coal smoke clinging to his coat. Lyra moved beside him like a shadow, eyes darting to every whisper, every motion behind the crates. Word is there here, she murmured. The rats? The sea rats, she corrected. 2 ships. One called Asterisk the Black Whisper. Asterisk Captain Varno runs her. Took 3 Sylvain caravans last season. Doesn't bow to anyone. Yet, Aerin said. They met in a storage house once used for salt curing, now filled with crates of contraband, rum barrels, and armed sailors watching with shark eyes. Captain Varno stood with boots wide, arms folded, beard braided with golden clasps. He had a scar through his lip that twisted every word into a sneer. You're the boy with the ash crown. You're the pirate with a ship full of stolen glass, Aerin replied. Varno grinned. I'm told you want to talk. I want to offer safe harbor. Harbor's already safe. We dock just fine. Safe without strings, Aerin said. No taxes. No inspections. No questions. Varno raised an eyebrow. What's the price? When I call, you answer. You want dogs. I want sharks. With a collar they wear by choice. The silence stretched. Varno looked to Lyra. You trust him? She shrugged. I trust he's too smart to betray you. Not until you're more valuable dead than alive. Varno laughed. You talk pretty, Ashlord. But if you think you can command the sea, you've got more ambition than sense. I don't want to command it, Aerin said. I want to buy it. One favor at a time. By the end of the night, a deal was struck. Varno's ships would run supplies through blockade routes. Aerin would provide shelter, resupply, and protection, no questions asked. The sea rats sailed at dawn, but their mark remained. A black coin pressed into Aerin's hand, etched with a serpent eating its tail. Later, Aerin stood on the dock, watching the ships disappear into mist. Morik joined him, tossing him a flask. You just made a deal with a man who burned a Sylvain magistrate alive. Yes. You're smiling. I am. Why? Aerin looked to the sea. Because Red Harbor just grew gills. Asterisk every alliance is a blade. The trick is knowing when it cuts you, and when it cuts your enemies. Asterisk. Chapter 14, Shards in the Sand. The mines lay west of Red Harbor, past the blighted fields and broken salt flats where nothing grew but wind. They were not marked on any map. Aerin stood at the edge of the scarred earth, the pale sky above him smudged with coal-colored clouds. To his left, Lyra stood silent, her coat pulled tight against the rising wind. "This is where your people disappear?" he asked. "Miners. Smugglers. Once a year, maybe twice. No screams. No bodies." She kicked a stone near her boot. It bounced once, then sank into the dust like it had never existed. "They say the ground hums," she added. "That if you dig too deep, the ash sings to you." Aerin crouched and placed a hand on the ground. He felt it. Not vibration, but resonance. Like standing too close to a tuning fork you couldn't hear but knew was there. He stood. "We'll need proper lights. Tools. Someone who understands how to detect shard traces without triggering collapse." "You plan on sending a team?" "No," Aerin said. "I plan on going myself." 3 days later, by moonlight, Aerin led a crew of 6 into the oldest shaft. They carried hooded lanterns and breathing cloths soaked in lemon brine to blunt the metal ash dust. The descent was slow. Painfully slow. The deeper they went, the more the walls seemed to close, not just physically, but spiritually. Morik, who had volunteered against every complaint of common sense, muttered behind him. "This place feels wrong." "It's old," Aerin said. "Old and pissed." They reached the bottom. The final chamber was a natural vault of cracked black glass. At the center lay a stone altar, partially buried under rubble. Strange runes, not Sylvains, not even Valewinds, twisted across its surface. Aerin approached. As he knelt, something clicked beneath his boot. A shard core, half-buried, crystalline, pulsing faintly red. He reached out. And for a moment, just one, the world shifted. He stood on a battlefield not his own. Shards the size of towers floated overhead, casting shadows on flame-wrecked cities. Titans of bone and metal fought in silence. In the distance, a black spire bled light into the sky. Then he was back. Kneeling. Gasping. Blood trickled from his nose. Lyra grabbed his arm. "What happened?" "I saw something." "What did you see?" "The past," Aerin whispered. "Or maybe the future." He looked down at the shard again. Then pocketed it. Some power sleeps not because it was forgotten, but because someone feared it waking. Chapter 15. The First Betrayal. Counselor Bran had grown quiet. Too quiet. Ever since Aerin's ascent, his name had become a ghost, rarely heard, never seen. But Bran had not left the city. He was waiting. Brewing. Hoping Aerin would overstep, would grow careless. But Aerin had grown smarter. And Lyra's spies had grown faster. The report came at dawn. Lyra dropped a sealed letter onto Aerin's desk. "He's been in contact with a Valkyrian envoy," she said. "Offering to sell Red Harbor's trade routes to Sylvain-backed privateers in exchange for full amnesty and a writ of reclamation." Aerin opened the letter. Inside, transcripts. Maps. A schedule of planned cargo raids. "He thought no one watched," Lyra said. "No. He thought we'd never catch him using parchment instead of whispers." That afternoon, Aerin summoned Bran to the manor. The old counselor arrived in full formal robes, his beard oiled and braided, the stink of confidence clinging to him. "A treaty proposal?" Bran asked as he entered. "You should have come to me sooner. I assume this means we're finally restoring order." Aerin gestured to the chair across from him. "Indeed. I want us to be on the same page." Bran sat. Aerin slid a single sheet of paper across the table. Bran read it. His face drained of color. You forged this." "No," Aerin said calmly. "Your man sent it to the wrong dockmaster, who happened to owe me a favor. It's remarkable how many people suddenly value honesty when fed." Bran reached for a dagger hidden in his sleeve. He never touched it. Morik, already behind him, drove a spike into the back of his hand, not fatal, just enough to pin it to the wood of the chair. Bran screamed. "I could execute you," Aerin said. But then you'd become a warning. I'd prefer something subtler. He leaned in. You will sign a confession admitting corruption. You will transfer your properties and holdings to the Free Port Authority. And you will leave the city with a limp. Bran gasped through gritted teeth. Why spare me? Because your name still holds weight. And I'm going to spend it like coin. Later, in the city square, the confession was nailed to the execution post. Bran was led through the streets in chains. He limped. Not because Morik hurt him, but because he knew he'd lost. And Red Harbor cheered. Betrayal ends many kings. But sometimes it builds one instead. Chapter 16. Ashes of the Past. Sir Kaelin had not been seen in weeks. Old, iron-backed, and bitter, the retired knight had faded into the gutters of Red Harbor after delivering Aerin to exile. No title. No pension. Just a tarnished reputation and an axe he hadn't sharpened in years. But now, summoned at Aerin's request, he stood again in the shattered halls of the manor, posture still straight despite the limp in his left leg. Aerin dismissed his guards and met the old knight alone in the cold war room, lit only by firelight and the distant echo of waves. You've rebuilt something here, Kaelin said after a long pause, eyes drifting over the maps on the wall, the marked patrol routes, the blood-stained ledgers stacked in rows. I'm not done rebuilding, Aerin replied. Kaelin snorted. You will be. When they bury you in the stone you've stacked. You didn't come here to lecture me. No. Kaelin approached the map. His finger tapped Red Harbor's center, then slid west, toward the mountains. There's a reason your father sent you here. I know, Aerin said. To protect me. Kaelin shook his head. To prepare you. He turned, expression heavy with something colder than memory. Your bloodline bears a pact older than the court. Older than Sylvain. Your family didn't just govern the coast. They sealed it. Aerin blinked. Sealed what? You ever wonder why Red Harbor was erased from maps? Why Sylvain let it rot? Kaelin reached into his coat and removed a small, rusted signet, a broken ring with a blood-red shard embedded in its crest. This was once worn by Lord Aerin Valewind, your ancestor. He was called the Morning Warden. Because he buried something in these lands. And swore his line would keep it buried. Aerin felt his pulse slow. That's just legend. Legends don't burn holes in maps. Kaelin growled. He took a step closer, his voice lower now. And you've already touched something, haven't you? Aerin said nothing. The shard from the mine still pulsed quietly in his coat, as if hearing its name through the flames. Kaelin nodded grimly. Then the seal is already cracking. He turned and walked away. Aerin remained in the firelight long after he'd gone, the silence loud with thoughts he didn't yet want to think. Some thrones are not built to rule, but to guard the world from what lies beneath. Chapter 17. The Festival of Masks. 3 days later, the smoke of the mine still clung faintly to Aerin's coat, but the city itself was waking. In the slums, on rooftops, along docks and alleyways, rumors whispered of something strange, that the Crownless Lord had announced a festival. Lyra nearly choked on her tea when she heard it. A festival? Now? We just bled 3 gangs out of the city. You're holding court by torchlight. We barely have bread. That's exactly why, Aerin said. He stood over a wide scroll of illustrations. Mask designs. Procession routes. Reconstructed floats. Repurposed paper flags dipped in red dye and salt to mimic ash. The Festival of Masks was once sacred to Red Harbor. A time when caste didn't matter, when even beggars could wear gold, if only in paint. It died when Sylvain took over and banned unregulated gatherings. And now? Morik asked from the corner. Now it lives again. And this time, I write the story. The day of the festival broke beneath gray skies, but the people emerged anyway. Children wore masks shaped like dragons, wolves, and crows. Merchants passed out ribbons dipped in ash, and performers walked the streets on stilts, draped in cloth meant to evoke fire and smoke. The ash blades, disguised in ceremonial garb, moved through the crowd silently, ensuring no violence broke through the pageantry. Aerin stood on the highest platform, once used for public punishments, now transformed into a stage of music, light, and carefully measured spectacle. He wore no crown. Only a mask, half black, half silver, shaped like the broken Valewind crest. When he raised his hand, the crowd quieted. He spoke with no script. "This city has been called broken," he said. "Rotten. Lost. But today we wear masks not to hide, but to remember. The people listened, not because they had to, but because they chose to. Every banner I hang, every patrol I send, every wall we raise, is not for conquest. It's for us. For a city that was buried, and now rises." He paused. "And should anyone ask what Red Harbor stands for, tell them this. We wear ash not as shame, but as armor. The roar that followed shook the square. Later, as the fires died down and the lanterns swayed in the wind, Lyra found him on the balcony, watching dancers whirl through the haze. "They believe in you now," she said. "For tonight. Tomorrow too. And the day after. If you keep giving them something to believe in." Aerin didn't reply at first. Then quietly he said, "It's not me they need to believe in. It's the idea." Lyra looked at him, expression unreadable. "Then make it worth believing in. Power wins battles. But stories win cities. Chapter 18, Blood for Blood. The Iron Wake limped into harbor at dawn, sails torn, hull scorched, and her crew silent. She wasn't supposed to return. Not yet. Not like this. Aerin stood on the pier with Lyra and Morik, eyes scanning the blood-spattered deck as ropes dropped and men began stumbling ashore. Captain Varnal was among them, bruised, bleeding from a gash over his left brow. "Explain," Aerin said. Varnal's voice rasped like sea salt over stone. "It was a setup." He staggered forward, shaking with anger. "We went to meet with the Dagger Isle's brokers, just like you asked. They said they had shard cores for trade. Said they wanted in on your network." "And?" Morik asked, hand twitching near his blade. "They lied. It was a trap. Mercenaries with Sylvain's silver in their eyes. They came for you." Aerin frowned. "But you're the one they attacked." "Because I'm your Anva now." Varnal spat. "Your reputation has weight, Lord Ash. And someone just tried to drown it." From the ship, a cloth bundle was lowered to the pier. Inside it, 6 heads. 2 belonged to pirates Aerin had shaken hands with. 1 belonged to a smuggler child who just started carrying messages for the Ash market. Aerin didn't speak. Didn't move. Morik did. He kicked the bundle into the water with a growl. "We'll find the bastards who—" "No," Aerin said. His voice was quiet. Cold. "We won't find them. Not yet." Lyra raised an eyebrow. "You're not going to strike back?" "I will. But not with swords." He turned to the scorched Iron Wake, now barely floating. "I'm going to take every name they trust. Every deal they depend on. And twist them." That night, Aerin sat alone in the manor's upper chamber, the sea breeze whispering through broken shutters. On the desk before him sat a piece of parchment. He dipped his pen. "Never again without layers. ****. He underlined it twice. Then added another line. "Trust is a currency. Never spend more than you can bleed. ****. Power may rise on trust, but it is sharpened by betrayal. Chapter 19, Seeds of Rebellion. 2 weeks later, the ash banners flew higher. The Tideborn marched through the rebuilt docks in formation, disciplined, uniformed, and unafraid. The city had changed. And now, others were watching. The first messenger came from Eldenreach, a forgotten farming village 2 days northeast. The second from Strake Hollow, known for its timber and mines. Each carried words spoken in smoke and sealed in palm wax. Asterisk. We hear the broken lord keeps his promises. Asterisk. Asterisk. We ask what it would cost to join him. Asterisk. Aerin sat with Lyra, Morik, and 2 scribes in the war chamber, a new map spread before them. Red Harbor glowed at the center, but now, tiny ash-colored pins marked points farther and farther outward. You've started something, Lyra said quietly. Something bigger than a city. It was never just about a city, Aerin replied. Morik leaned forward, tapping the map. You think you can hold it? Half these places still answer to nobles who think you're a pretender. The other half are too poor to matter. Which is why they'll listen to me, Aerin said. Because I offer what the court never did: trade, protection, roads, a voice. Not just rule. He looked to the scribes. Send word to Eldon each. Offer them tools, seed, and a contract for grain shipments. And Strake Hollow? One scribe asked. Send 3 masons and a bag of coin. Help them rebuild their logging hall. Lyra crossed her arms. And in exchange? Loyalty. A flag. And their silence when the time comes to strike. That night, rumors whispered through the countryside. Rumors of a lord who walked among his people. Of a harbor where law and freedom walked side by side. Of a banner painted with ash and flame. By the time dawn broke, 23 more letters had arrived. Most unsigned. But they all asked the same thing. Asterisk, what does it take to break free? Asterisk. Asterisk, rebellion begins not with war cries, but with quiet hope passed hand to hand. Asterisk. Asterisk, and the courage to answer it. Asterisk. Chapter 20, The Forgotten Map. The manor breathed with new life. Stone masons repaired the outer walls by day, while scribes illuminated old war charts at night. The kitchens never stopped cooking, not because there was abundance, but because no fire in Red Harbor could afford to go cold. And yet, amid the rebuilding, there were corners of the manor that still whispered. Places not yet touched, not yet tamed. It was in one such place, a collapsed wine cellar beneath the west wing, that the past stirred. It began with Morik, who had taken to pacing the walls like a wolf on watch. South Passage is caved in, he grunted one evening, torch in hand, face streaked with soot. But there's an old shaft down there, bricked off and sealed in wax. Thought you'd want a look before I bashed it open. He wasn't wrong. Aerin descended with him into the dark, where the stone tasted of mildew and rust, and where the air seemed older than the city above. The brickwork was archaic, older even than Valewind's crest. The mortar was smooth, silver-threaded. And beneath the wax seal, a faint sigil, a broken crown embedded in a circle of flames. Aerin traced it with his fingertips. Then he took the torch and burned the wax away. The hidden chamber was small, just wide enough for 3 men to stand shoulder to shoulder. At its center lay a single iron chest, bound in faded red leather. Inside, scrolls. Dozens of them. Sealed in oilskin and carefully indexed in a script no longer taught. But it was the largest scroll, wrapped in silver twine, that drew Aerin's breath. He unrolled it slowly, reverently. It was a map. But not of the Red Harbor he knew. This one bore 2 cities, one above ground, marked by the same roads and gates that now lay in ruin, and another beneath. A lattice of tunnels, chambers, and glyph-sealed junctions, etched in such fine ink it shimmered in the torchlight. Aerin whispered aloud. A second city. Morik leaned in. Bunkers? More than that. He pointed. These aren't sewer lines. Look, the southern quadrant is marked with shard containment symbols. And that, Morik said, squinting, looks like a gate. No, Aerin said. It's a lock. He turned to Morik. This city was built on top of something older, something dangerous. And my ancestors weren't just warlords. They were keepers. By the next morning, the war room had been cleared. The scroll was mounted on a new board, and copies were being transcribed for study. Lyra stared at it for a long time. We've walked over this how many times? She murmured. And no one knew. No one was supposed to. Aerin replied. He tapped one tunnel line near the old docks. This leads to a sealed chamber. No record of what's inside. But this. He pointed to another path leading out of the city entirely. This connects to the outer hamlets. We could move troops, supplies, even evacuate, without Sylvain seeing a shadow. Lyra stepped back, exhaling. So what now? Aerin looked out the window, down at the city he had claimed in blood and ash. Now we stop reacting. He turned to them both. Now we prepare. That night, Aerin knelt alone in the old chapel behind the manor, holding the shard from the mine in his palm. The same whisper echoed faintly in the back of his mind. The Harrow Pact must be hidden. He clenched his fist. Not anymore. To rule the broken, one must first shatter the chains that bind them. Even the ones buried beneath the earth. Chapter 21, The Salt Tax. The riot began over a barrel of salt. Aerin arrived too late to stop the blood. By the time his Tide-born guard parted the desperate crowd, the old woman had already collapsed beside her overturned cart, face purple from the boots of a drunken guardsman and the wrath of another merchant's thugs. Salt lay scattered like tiny bones across the mud-slick stones, soaked in the rain that never seemed to leave Red Harbor's breath. Aerin knelt beside her. She was still breathing. Barely. The soldier who'd struck her stood dazed, mouth smeared with regret and ale, staring as if waiting for someone else to lift the blame. Aerin stood slowly. Name, he said. The man fumbled for words, the city crest still clinging to his corroded belt buckle. I didn't. Aerin nodded. Morik stepped forward, drew a blade, and struck the man across the face with the hilt. Blood blossomed instantly. The crowd gasped, but said nothing. Aerin didn't raise his voice. Let this be known, no coin, no name, no lord protects those who strike the innocent. Then he turned to Lyra, who crouched beside the old woman's fallen sack, sifting through the coarse grains. Third increase in 2 weeks? She muttered. Same source. Same pattern. We traced shipments from Pier 6 to Dockmaster 3's, then rerouted to warehouses under Marnik and Rug Jin. They're creating the shortage. Driving prices. Paying off the guards to stay silent. Why? Aerin asked. Because, she said, holding up a salt-crusted manifest, they think Red Harbor still belongs to merchants. Not you. Aerin stood there for a long moment. Then he said very softly, Prepare the scales. Chapter 22, Baiting the Hook. It was a feast in name only. Aerin had chosen the abandoned grain hall near the western docks, not for its beauty, but for its acoustics. Each footfall echoed. Every voice lingered. He let the docklords arrive first. Marnik arrived in velvet, Rugjin in lacquered bone rings, and Threes, the most bloated of the trio, arrived with a feathered lapel that had once belonged to some disgraced duke. They exchanged pleasantries, false smiles, offered hands that Aerin did not shake. Lord Aerin, Threes said with exaggerated grace. An honor. I doubt that, Aerin replied. The docklords chuckled. Ah, Marnik said. Humor. Good. We need more of that these days. You'll find this evening very illuminating, Aerin said, walking ahead of them through the pillared hall, the sound of his boots steady and echoing. Lyra waited by the dais, a thick bundle of ledgers in her arms. Behind her, hidden behind a sheet of canvas, stood the object of the night. The crowd arrived quietly, merchants, guards, fish wives, grain workers. No invitation had gone out, but word had spread. A feast called by the Crownless Flame was not something one ignored. Aerin stood before the gathered eyes and cleared his throat. There are some who think power is measured by coin, by cargo, by gate fees and market rates. He looked to the docklords. I disagree. With a sharp nod, Lyra pulled the canvas aside. Gasps rippled outward. There stood the scales of harbor law, ancient, forged in black iron, older than most families in the room. Its pans hung heavy on rusted chains, but its balance bar was untouched by time. Justice once had been weighed here, by weight of evidence, not whim of title. Morik carried forward the ledgers. One by one, Lyra read. To Dockmaster Threes, a shipment of salt marked spoiled, sold to foreign merchants at 3 times market price while domestic stores ran dry. To Rugjin, bribes paid to Harbor Watch to reroute grain convoys through private storage. To Marnik, 15 contracts signed with Sylvain intermediaries for civil resource redistribution, sealed with wax bearing a foreign crown. Every line added another stone weight to the right side of the scale. By the end, the balance was crushed so low it scraped the floor. The left pan, marked with the crest of Ashenhold, remained still, quiet, empty. Do you deny these charges? Aerin asked. Threes spat. Forgery. Lies. You stage a farce and expect the world to kneel? No, Aerin said. He dropped a final ingot, stamped with his own sigil, onto the left pan. The scales did not tip. But the silence in the hall did. I expect them to choose. He turned to the crowd. This is no longer a city of merchants. This is a city of stone, of sweat, of ash reborn. Red Harbor died with your corruption. Ashenhold rises in its place. Then, quietly, he added, choose who you stand with. Before someone else does it for you. Chapter 23, Trial by Weight. The hall was silent but for the creaking of ancient iron. The scales of harbor law, now polished and rebalanced, loomed behind Aerin like a god's forgotten judgment. Forged long ago by Red Harbor's founder, a merchant prince who believed gold and grain should be weighed the same in war, it had not been raised in decades. But tonight, under torchlight and the watchful eyes of the people, it had returned. Aerin stood with his coat draped behind him like a cape, boots fixed to the stone dais. The crowd was packed shoulder to shoulder. Fishwives. Harbor guards. Apprentices with ink-stained fingers. Ragged children on rooftops. Even the nobles had come, tucked into the corners like shadows pretending they weren't afraid. Before him stood the docklords Threes, Marnik, and Rugjin, chained, but not yet condemned. This is not a trial in word, Aerin began, voice calm. It is a trial of weight. From beside him, Lyra stepped forward with a velvet sack. One by one, she drew iron ingots stamped with crimes. Embezzlement of salt shipments during famine. Clank. Sale of medicine reserves to Sylvain-aligned buyers. Clank. Bribery of 6 harbor inspectors. Clank. 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 The crowd murmured louder with each weight dropped into the right pan of the scale. The dock lords shifted uncomfortably. Sweat traced paths through powder-white collars. Manipulation of shipping routes to starve outer wards. Clank. Fixing prices of grain during storm season. Clank. Collusion with Sylvain to restrict Ashenhold's trade routes. Clank. When the last weight fell, the scale tipped. The pan crashed to the flagstone below, clattering like a bell tolling doom. The left pan, marked with Ashenhold's seal, rose as if ascending into judgment. The people waited. Some expected fire. Others a sword. But Aerin only stepped forward and spoke, voice firm, emotionless. No blood today. Only truth. He raised his hand. Let justice be visible. Chapter 24, The Hanging Silence. At dawn, the tide was cruel. 3 tie posts stood at the city's eastern docks, once used to moor supply barges. Now they served another purpose. Each docklord was lashed to one, arms bound behind them, facing the rising sun. Around their necks hung slate boards etched with their crimes. No executioner's axe. No noose. Just the city, watching. Day 1. Children threw rotten fruit. Women cursed salt-fattened fingers that had starved their children. Rugjin sneered at them, jaw clenched in defiance. Marnik whimpered through cracked lips, muttering he was innocent. Threes stood unmoved, eyes closed, lips moving in quiet prayer to a god no one had seen in years. Aerin watched from the balcony above the lower pier, arms folded. Lyra leaned against the rail beside him. They'll break, she said. I want them to, he replied. Day 2. Rain fell. Not a storm, but a soaking kind of grief, slow and cold. Rugjin screamed by midday, promising gold, naming co-conspirators, begging for mercy. He was unbound by sundown, stripped of land, holdings, and titles. His home was burned. He was given a pauper's shirt and left outside the wall. No one followed. Marnik didn't speak. He died during the night, salt rot in his wounds, silence in his throat. Only Threes remained. Day 3. Threes opened his eyes. He did not plead. He did not cry. But when Aerin approached him that evening, boots echoing over soaked planks, Threes turned his head and said, "You are more dangerous than they will ever know." "I hope so," Aerin said. "You helped build this city once. It rotted under your rule. Now it will rise in spite of you." Threes smirked. "You think you've won something. But the sea doesn't forget. And Sylvain doesn't forgive." Aerin leaned close. "I'm not asking them to." Threes was cut free that night, but not pardoned. He was sent to labor on the northern roads, far from Doc's coin and the life he once ruled. And as the tide came in, washing away the bloodless stain of judgment, the city spoke in whispers. "He rules with fire. But he punishes with silence." And Ashenhold, once ruled by coin, now bent to weight, of iron, of shame, of justice seen. Chapter 25, The Ash Ledger. The ink dried slowly. The hall was cold, not from wind, but from stillness. The kind of stillness that follows war, or the final breath before a name is carved in stone. Aerin's signature, sharp and deliberate, glistened at the bottom of the parchment. Beneath it, in red wax, the broken crown sigil, now more than a symbol of rebellion. It had become law. He looked up from the scroll at the half-circle of men and women before him, dockmasters, treasurers, grain wardens, and former merchant elites stripped of title and clinging to relevance. They stood in silence, watching the first page of the Ash Ledger become official. "This," Aerin said, tapping the parchment, "is no mere book of coin. This is our order. Our memory. Our contract." His voice echoed through the reclaimed chamber, once the estate of a noble who'd fled east when the riots began. Now repurposed as the seat of a new kind of authority, the Ashen Authority, a central bureau for harbor operations, resource flow, taxation, and, most importantly, accountability. Every trade would now be recorded. Every tariff would be posted publicly. Every dispute would be weighed, not bought. Morik, standing at his right, whispered, "The nobles won't like being reduced to ink and ledgers." Aerin replied, "Then they shouldn't have bartered their honor for salt." Lyra stood at the rear of the room, watching the new officials receive stamped copies of the Ash Charter. Each one bore not only Aerin's seal, but their name. She smirked as a few flinched. "They'll obey," she said later that evening, as they walked the torchlit promenade. For now." "For now," Aerin agreed. They passed a merchant ship offloading crates under the watch of Ty-born guards, and not a single bribe passed hands. The harbor had changed. And so had its master. Chapter 26, Letters and Lies. Far from the harbor, beyond the reach of banners and blade, Aerin's war took a different form. One of parchment, ink, and whispers. In the depths of the repurposed Scribes' Guild, now called the Chamber of Ashen Quill, Aerin moved like a general among maps, scrolls, and candle smoke. Laid out before him were the personal correspondences of over 30 noble houses tied to Sylvain's outer territories, missives intercepted, blackmailed, stolen by Lyra's runners, or found in the ledgers of traitorous merchants. Love letters. Trade complaints. Debt agreements. All of it, leverage. He dipped a quill and began drafting replies. To Lord Jareth of Mornstone. "We regret to hear that your grain shipment was delayed. Ashenhold offers a modest contract of safe passage, in exchange for exclusive rights to your eastern mill. To Baroness Kedra. The rumors about your son and the priestess are, of course, safe with us. Perhaps a donation to our reconstruction efforts will ensure they remain merely rumors. To the minor Duke of Neravale. You are not the only one tired of Sylvain's taxes. If your banners ever wished to stand alone, know that you would not stand alone. It was not treason. Not openly. It was invitation. It was doubt. It was the soft erosion of a great empire by the steady drip of uncertainty. Morik hated it. "They're snakes," he growled. "They'll turn on you first chance they get. Then I'll give them no chance," Aerin replied, unrolling a sealed scroll bearing a forged Sylvain crest. "Only illusions. Let them fight shadows while I build something real." A week later, in a distant manor across the hills, a barren steward wept as he burned a bundle of letters, unaware they'd been designed to be discovered by his rivals. Ashenhold had no official ambassador. But its presence had begun to worm its way into every court, every map, every conversation spoken behind wine-soaked lips. And Aerin, alone in the quill chamber, continued writing. Each letter a dagger. Each signature a mask. Each lie, another stone pulled from Sylvain's crumbling wall. Chapter 27, The Black Ledger. It began with a wine stain. Morik had been overseeing the reclamation of the old customs tower, once a gleaming center for merchant traffic, now a crumbling edifice gutted by fire and rot. Most of what they found was kindling, moldy tariffs, half-charred ledgers, and ink-faded maps that no longer matched the coastline. But then he found the false panel, behind a broken wine cask, beneath a pile of burned robes. A hollow click. A trap-hinged drawer. Inside, a single black-bound ledger. It had no title. Only a rune scorched into the cover, a coin split by a dagger. Aerin turned the brittle pages under the light of the shard lantern. One by one, the names unfurled. And the numbers. Gods, the numbers. Payments from Sylvain, transferred through third party guilds to former Red Harbor officials. Bribes listed in coded weights of grain. Locations for covert meetings masked as trade stops. St. To R. H. Council, 45,000 glint weight. To ensure passivity during dock rebellion. Confirmed vote rigging for trade chancellor seat. Funds laundered via temple tithe. Authorized silencing of blacksmith's guild leader. Compensation through Sylvain grain stamps. Aerin closed the book gently, as if afraid it might scream. "This ledger," he whispered, "isn't a record. It's a noose," Morik muttered. By week's end, Aerin sent out carefully folded letters, not threats, not accusations, but reminders. To a minor lord who still hadn't declared for Ashenhold. "We've reviewed your late uncle's accounts. Curious how generous Sylvain was for a man of such modest holdings." To the Spice Baroness who'd been playing both sides. "We'd be happy to return your brother's name to the official registry, provided we all forget what he sold to the prison wardens in year 513. No demands. Only the quiet certainty of what could be exposed." One by one, former opponents became silent allies. Those who didn't? They found their secrets leaked, to rivals, to wives, to the tavern bards who sang truth too well. Aerin placed the black ledger inside the iron vault behind his desk, beside his father's final letter. And then he whispered, "Let Sylvain fear its own foundation." Chapter 28, Whispers in the Dust. Red Harbor had many skeletons. But some didn't stay buried. It was Lyra's youngest runner, a wiry pickpocket named Sarn, who brought the first word. He came limping into the Ashen Circle's war chamber with soot on his face and a shard scar on his arm. "South Mine," he rasped. "The deep one. There's something down there." At first, Aerin assumed smugglers. Or pirates using old tunnels. But Sarn described something else. Symbols. Carved into the stone. Not new. Not thieves' marks either. There were bones. Arranged. And a ring of broken shard glass that hummed. Aerin gathered only 3 for the descent: Lyra, Morik, and Ser Kalin, the half-mad knight who once served in the Borderfire Crusades and spoke 7 dialects of dead languages. They made their way into the southern mine entrance under cover of night. The path narrowed. Torchlight dimmed. Dust curled like breath through the bones of the earth. And then they saw it. A cavern deep beneath the city, untouched by time. The walls were engraved in curling, branching patterns, like vines woven through flame. Symbols not seen in any shardcraft, but older, cruder, more ritualistic. In the center, a circle of blackened shard glass, each fragment planted like a blade into the stone. It pulsed faintly. Not light, but resonance. A hum they felt in their bones more than their ears. And above the circle, etched into the ceiling, we broke the stars to feed the flame. Kalen knelt in silence. This is no cult, he whispered. This is a tomb. Lyra's hand hovered over her dagger. Should we destroy it? Aerin shook his head. No. Not until we understand what it means. But his thoughts were grim. The shard relics had always been mysterious. But this worship? It suggested there had once been something deeper. Older than Sylvain. Older than the Valewind line. Something below the world's history. And now, it stirred. Chapter 29, The Broken Seal. They thought it was just another passage. The surveyors had been expanding the southern tunnels under Aerin's orders, a quiet excavation cloaked beneath the pretense of mine reclamation. But when they struck the wall of blackened stone, smooth, seamless, veined with veins of inert shard glass, they should have stopped. They didn't. And the seal broke with no sound, only a pulse. It began as a pressure, then a vibration in the stone, and then a sudden exhale of heatless wind. A pulse of something, not light, not sound, but pure presence, rolled through the tunnels like a breast stirred after centuries of silence. And Red Harbor felt it. Fish leapt from the bay. Shard glass lanterns flickered and pulsed with wrong-colored light. Dozens across the city collapsed in brief seizures, raving of circles of fire and iron voices. In the Forge district, a hammer arm froze mid-strike, then activated on its own. In the upper wards, priestesses of the fivefold flame awoke screaming. And in Aerin's chamber, the shard relic mounted on the wall, inert since the day he arrived, began to vibrate. By nightfall, the entire city buzzed like a taut wire. Aerin stood in the deep chamber with Morik and Lyra beside him, staring at the opening in the stone. Beyond it lay a room of impossible angles, carved with runes that shimmered and shifted when stared at too long. A stone dais stood in the center. Empty. Yet wrong. As if it remembered something that had once sat upon it, and wanted it back. Lyra whispered. It's like the relics were waiting. Morik, his voice tight, said. This isn't just old magic. This is before magic. Aerin didn't speak. He was staring at the wall behind the dais, where a single phrase had appeared since the seal had broken, scrawled in glowing ember lines. The flame carries the broken blood. Chapter 30, The Flame's Shadow. The emissary arrived at dawn. She wore gray robes, not of any known order, stitched with threads of crystal that shimmered like still water under starlight. Her face was lined but sharp, her voice low and steady. She bore no name. Only a shard. Not forged. Not cut. Grown. She did not bow before Aerin. She simply stared. The seal has broken, she said. And you are not ready. Aerin dismissed his guards. Morik protested, but Aerin raised a hand. Let her speak. The emissary stepped forward, eyes fixed on the relic pulsing behind Aerin's desk. You believe the shard relics are tools? Weapons? Keys? They are not. They are memories. Seeds of a flame older than this continent. Older than Sylvain. Older than the first crowned king. And now, one has recognized you. Aerin's breath caught. Recognized? She nodded. Your blood bears a mark. You do not remember it. But the flame does. You are the line that once bound the flame. And now you awaken it again. Piece by piece. Aerin tried to keep his voice steady. What do you want? She smiled, not kindly. To warn you. The shards are waking. Each relic you revive sings louder. And those who once heard the song will return to finish what was begun. She turned to leave. But before stepping through the threshold, she paused. And one more thing, Broken Lord. The more your people prosper, the louder the flame grows. The more they believe in you. The closer you draw to what sleeps beneath. Then she was gone. No name. No trace. Only the faint scent of ash and starlight where she had stood. Aerin sat alone in his chamber for a long time after. And when he rose, he lit the shard relic with a touch of his bare hand. It blazed like a heartbeat. The flame remembers. The city grows. And something ancient watches from the deep. Chapter 30. The Flame's Shadow. The emissary arrived at dawn. She wore gray robes, not of any known order, stitched with threads of crystal that shimmered like still water under starlight. Her face was lined but sharp, her voice low and steady. She bore no name. Only a shard. Not forged. Not cut. Grown. She did not bow before Aerin. She simply stared. "The seal has broken," she said. "And you are not ready." Aerin dismissed his guards. Morik protested, but Aerin raised a hand. "Let her speak." The emissary stepped forward, eyes fixed on the relic pulsing behind Aerin's desk. "You believe the shard relics are tools? Weapons? Keys? They are not. They are memories. Seeds of a flame older than this continent. Older than Sylvain. Older than the first crowned king. And now, one has recognized you." Aerin's breath caught. "Recognized?" She nodded. "Your blood bears a mark. You do not remember it. But the flame does. You are the line that once bound the flame. And now you awaken it again. Piece by piece." Aerin tried to keep his voice steady. "What do you want?" She smiled, not kindly. "To warn you. The shards are waking. Each relic you revive sings louder. And those who once heard the song will return to finish what was begun." She turned to leave. But before stepping through the threshold, she paused. "And one more thing, Broken Lord. The more your people prosper, the louder the flame grows. The more they believe in you. The closer you draw to what sleeps beneath." Then she was gone. No name. No trace. Only the faint scent of ash and starlight where she had stood. Aerin sat alone in his chamber for a long time after. And when he rose, he lit the shard relic with a touch of his bare hand. It blazed like a heartbeat. The flame remembers. The city grows. And something ancient watches from the deep. Chapter 31. The Invitation. The letter was penned in Aerin's own hand, crimson wax seal, pressed with the broken crown. To Counselor Emeritus Bran of the Old Quarter. "It has been too long since we've spoken face to face. Let us dine as men once did in better days, in the spirit of peace. Come, let us break bread beneath a new banner. Aerin Valewind of Ashenhold. No threats. No riddles. Just civility. Laced with venom." Lyra read the letter once, then again, her lips curling in amusement. "He'll know it's a trap. He'll suspect," Aerin replied. "But he's not sure. That's the difference." "Then why invite him at all?" Morik asked. "You already destroyed his network, seized his estates. He's a husk." "Because," Aerin said, setting down his pen, "the city needs a grave. One last, final spectacle. Not an execution, a ceremony. The people must see the old harbor die, and rise as something new." He looked out the window, where scaffolding traced the edges of a new watchtower being built from Bran's dismantled estate stone. "Besides," he added, "Bran thinks he still has friends." Whispers began immediately. "The Broken Lord invites his enemies to dine now? It's a pardon. It's a performance. It's a death sentence in silk." The citizens of Red Harbor, no Ashenhold, began preparing for the spectacle as if it were a festival. Every house wanted an invitation. Every noble wanted a seat near the dais. Every enemy of Bran prayed he'd attend. Bran, once the spider that ruled the city's merchant web, sent only a single word reply. Delighted. Chapter 32. Venom in the Wine. The feast was held in the Echo Hall, once the vault chamber for a shipping guild, now repurposed into Ashenhold's central forum of ceremony. Candlelight gleamed off black stone columns and ashwood carvings, each depicting scenes from the harbor's turbulent rebirth. The guests arrived in robes and finery. Music played, wine flowed, and laughter filled the air, but beneath it all, tension. The kind that coils between ribs and tightens with every smile. Aerin sat at the head of the table, dressed in austere black, a single shard forged pin glinting at his collar. And at his side sat Counselor Bran, older, paler, but not broken. He wore blue brocade and the smile of a man who still believed he had cards to play. "To peace," Aerin said, raising his glass. "And to the ones who built this city, even if it had to be torn down to be saved." They drank. Bran's eyes didn't leave Aerin's. "I must admit," Bran said, gesturing at the silver-plated cutlery, the velvet banners, the orchestral flutes, "I didn't expect this level of generosity." Aerin smiled. "All courtesy of your confiscated holdings, Counselor." The table froze. Bran's fingers curled around his goblet. "I see." Aerin gestured, and masked performers took the stage. They reenacted the rise of Ashenhold, with stylized masks, one bearing the likeness of Aerin, another of Morik, and 3 grotesque masks shaped after Bran and his 2 former co-conspirators. The crowd laughed. The actors played the Counselor of Salt, groveling and weeping as the city burned behind him. Bran did not laugh. Course after course came, each one labeled with poetic cruelty. The Dockmaster's Fall. Spiced crab served over scorched barley. Bran's gilded farewell. Candied lemon glazed with a silver coin atop. The Crownless Choice. A bitter wine poured last. Aerin stood with the final glass. "Tonight," he said, "we do not bury a man. We bury a time. A way of rule." He raised the goblet. "To old sins, may they never rise again." Bran didn't drink. He only smiled and whispered, "This is all theater." Aerin leaned in. "Of course it is," he said softly. "But I own the stage. And the audience." Bran was escorted out that night, unharmed, untouched, but with no holdings, no allies, and no name worth a whisper. And the next morning, the walls of Ashenhold bore a new carving, just above the outer gates. "He who once sat above trade, now begs at its gate." Chapter 33, Trial of Masks. The masks were delivered a day before the event. Each was carved from pale ashwood, lacquered in either deep crimson or storm gray. Delicate, beautiful, and anonymous. One per guest. No exceptions. A thin scroll accompanied each one. For one night, all truths wear a mask. All lies wear a smile. Come as yourselves, and leave as those who saw justice unshackled. There was no list of names. No seating chart. Only masks? The hall had changed. Gone were the drapes of celebration. In their place, star candlelight, a bare dais, and 3 hanging tapestries, each marked with a sigil from Red Harbor's corrupted past. The former seal of the Merchants' Guild. The mark of Sylvain's trade embassy. And the broken scales of Bran's failed justice. Aerin stood at the center, no mask on his face, dressed in black shard thread. To his left sat Morik, arms crossed, visibly irritated by the pageantry. To his right stood Lyra, masked, silent, but watching everything. And at the center of it all, seated beneath a ring of iron chains fused into the floor, sat Bran, his mask silver and smooth, featureless save for a single vertical line carved where the mouth should be. The guests entered in silence. Each wore their mask. Nobles, dockmasters, merchants, even common laborers who had earned favors or sold secrets, all present, all nameless tonight. Aerin raised his hand, and the first parchment was brought forward. From a scribe once employed in the Chamber of Tides. Counselor Bran ordered false flood warnings to close the East Grain District, so his own stores could sell at triple value. A gasp. A whisper. A few glances. Another scroll. From a priestess of the Hollow Chapel. Bran took tithes meant for storm victims and funded mercenaries to raid rival estates. The chapel still leaks where the roof was never repaired. Aerin unrolled the next slowly. From the mother of a child lost in the salt riots. He knew. He stood at the window and watched. He sent no aid. Only locked doors. Bran did not move. The silver mask gleamed. But the room shifted. The anonymity gave license. Faces once restrained began to nod. Clenched fists tightened. Even those once neutral now began to weigh his sins against their silence. Chapter 34 The Shattering Toast. Aerin lifted a final cup, black porcelain, filled with a dark golden liquor made from barley grown in the reclaimed ash fields. A final toast, he said, raising the glass high. To revelation. Bran looked up. His mask reflected the candlelight like a mirror. He did not raise his glass. He could not. Aerin turned to the crowd. What is guilt, if never spoken aloud? What is justice, if never faced? He stepped forward, slowly, deliberately, and unrolled one last scroll. The following was dictated by Counselor Bran, 3 nights ago, in the presence of witnesses from both Ashenhold and Sylvain. It is signed, blood-marked, and sealed. The parchment trembled in Aerin's hand. I, Bran of Red Harbor, do confess to treason by manipulation of grain supply, murder by neglect, conspiracy with enemy agents, and the deliberate sabotage of the harbor guard during the winter riots. I accept that the people of this city deserve to know the truth. That I held power I did not earn, and wielded it without shame. I do not ask for mercy. Only that my sins end with me. Silence. No music. No applause. Only the crackle of torchlight. Aerin turned to Bran. He reached forward, slowly, and lifted the silver mask from his face. Beneath it, Bran's eyes were empty. Not defiant. Not broken. Just gone. The weight of it had drained him. The slow crushing of legacy, inch by inch. The crowd watched, transfixed, as Aerin turned the mask in his hands, then dropped it. It shattered against the dais. The sound echoed through the chamber like a scream held far too long. Aerin turned to the crowd. He was once the gatekeeper of your bread. The hand behind your taxes. The voice above your pleas. Now he is a relic. Ash in a world of fire. Then, quietly, he said, May his sins teach us how not to rule. That night, no one saw Bran leave. But the mask, broken and displayed upon the outer wall of Echo Hall, remained for generations. A reminder of the night when truth had a face, and it cracked. Chapter 35 From Ash, Authority. The morning after the trial of masks broke colder than expected. Fog rolled through Red Harbor's streets like silk drawn over steel. The city was quiet, not in fear, but in anticipation. For while Bran's mask had shattered in silence, his exile would not. Aerin would see to that. The procession began at midday. Bran, cloaked in simple wool and escorted by ash blades, was led through the city's grand avenues. No manacles bound him. No guards shoved him forward. He walked, as if in mourning for a crown he never wore. The crowds were thick, lining the roads like spectators to a coronation. But there were no cheers. Instead, from the balconies and scaffoldings, ash petals fell, the dried leaves of the silver ash tree, crushed and died. A tradition once reserved for fallen nobles. This time, it mocked him. Behold the ash of your legacy. One woman called from above. Farewell, Lord Salt, muttered a merchant, tossing a rotten lemon. Ashenhold needs no gilded leeches, hissed a fishmonger, her apron wet from the docks. Bran said nothing. Aerin followed several paces behind, clad not in armor or velvet but a plain black tunic bearing the broken crown. At the gate, Aerin paused beside the former counselor. Their eyes met not with hate, but with finality. You were not the worst, Aerin said quietly. Only the last. Bran's voice was brittle. And what will they say about you, Crownless Flame? Aerin didn't answer. He didn't need to. With Bran exiled beyond the eastern road, forbidden from holding title or coin, Aerin returned to the Echo Hall. There, before a full assembly of Ashenhold's court, he laid the scales of harbor law upon the dais once more. But this time, he set something beside them. A ledger, bound in grey steel and trimmed in shard thread. The first volume of the Ashen Codex, a living record of rulings, decrees, and civic law. No longer would judgment rely on bribes and whispers. Each case would be weighed. Each verdict written, each sentence carved in history. And so the old court fell. And from its ruin, authority rose, not from nobility, but from the weight of proof. Ashenhold had a new law. And it bore Aerin's hand. Chapter 36 Emissaries in the Mist. The ridges beyond Red Harbor were old, jagged bones that once broke armies and swallowed caravans. Few ventured beyond them willingly, and fewer returned with peace. But Aerin had never been one for staying inside his borders. In a stone chamber deep within the reclaimed tower, 3 figures knelt. One wore the blue-gray armor of a tide-born scout. One bore the tattoos of the Silent Watch, Ashenhold's fledgling intelligence circle. The third, draped in a faded scholar's robe, carried no blade, only a roll of bound parchments and an iron stamp bearing the broken crown. "You understand the terms," Aerin said, pacing before them. "No threats. No demands. We offer trade, knowledge, shelter, and law. But we demand one thing in return. They must come as they are. Not as vassals. Not as prey. But as people who would stand with us, not beneath us." The scout saluted. "And if they refuse?" Aerin stopped. He placed a scroll on the table. "Then give them this." Lyra stepped forward, her eyes narrowing. "What is it?" Aerin smiled faintly. "The schematics for a windmill." That evening, as mist rose beyond the ridge trails, 3 emissaries rode out. They bore no swords. Only knowledge. Food. Maps. Tools. And the quiet promise of something better than the cold teeth of Sylvain or the indifferent wilderness. Far beyond Ashenhold's smoke-choked skies, the scattered tribes stirred. Some whispered of a city reborn in fire. Some feared it. But many listened. And thus, Ashenhold's shadow began to fall across the forgotten edges of the world, not with war, but with invitation. Chapter 37 Fire and Salt. They met at the edge of the world. Dorva was no longer a village. Not truly. What once had been a fortified trade post, long before Sylvain's wars, was now a scattering of half-burned homes and stone watchtowers swallowed by moss. Cracked salt stones lined the narrow paths like forgotten grave markers. Smoke still clung to the soil, though the fires had died a decade ago. Aerin arrived with no soldiers. Only Lyra, Ser Kalin, and the silent tide-born scout known as Grey Vex. The Dorvani tribes were waiting. Their chieftain, Valrikr, was a man of wide shoulders and quiet eyes. His beard was braided with bone and shale, and his cloak bore the scars of 3 wars. None fought under a flag. He did not bow. "You are the son of highborn fire," he said. "We do not kneel to flame." Aerin stepped forward. "Then let flame kneel to you." The crowd shifted uneasily. Lyra muttered under her breath. "They don't like poetry. They'll like results," Aerin replied. Inside the bone hall, the Dorvani's crumbling war lodge, talks began. It did not go well. "We remember your kind," spat Tassa the Blind, an elder with white milky eyes and a voice like broken glass. "Sylvain's silk-choked judges. Ash-mouthed tithes. When your lords came, we lost our salt, our steel, and our sons." "I am not Sylvain," Aerin said. "And I do not ask for tithes." "You ask for loyalty," Val countered. "That's worse." "No," Aerin said, placing a shard brazier on the table, a small, humming artifact forged in Ashenhold shardworks. Its light pulsed steadily. "I ask for a pact. Your salt. Our grain. Your fighters. Our steel. We both bleed. Let us build something that doesn't." Val said nothing. But he did not throw the brazier into the fire. That night, over bitter ale and ash-roasted meat, a challenge was issued. "If you want our pact," Val said, "you take our trial." The pact laid right? Tassa rasped. "Fire. Salt. Truth." Aerin did not hesitate. "I accept." Chapter 38 The pact laid right. The trial took place before dawn. The winds howled across the ridge of teeth, jagged stones reaching skyward like the fingers of dead giants. At the summit stood a circle of standing pillars, each etched with old tribal marks scorched into the stone. And at the center, a bowl of fire, ringed with salt and ancient bones. Val spoke first. Our ancestors trusted no king, no oath, no coin. They trusted only pain. The body doesn't lie. Tassa stepped forward and drew a curved dagger, black steel, wrapped in boiled cloth. You will walk the salt ring barefoot. You will place your hand in the flame until your skin remembers it. And you will carve your name into the pack blade. Not with words. With blood. Lyra paled. This is madness. Aerin unfastened his boots. No, he said. This is trust. He stepped into the ring. Each grain of salt was a spike beneath his feet, raw, jagged, piercing. The fire burned white-blue in the brazier. As he pressed his palm into it, a hiss tore through the air, and a cry rose in his throat but did not pass his lips. His skin blistered. Smoke curled. Still he held. 10 seconds. 15. Then he stepped back, cradling the scorched hand, and accepted the blade. The pack blade was not meant to kill. It was meant to cut just deep enough to remember. With a sharp breath, Aerin dragged the edge across his forearm. Blood welled up, dark, rich, unflinching. He pressed the wound to the flat of the blade. And the steel drank it in. The blade shimmered briefly. A low hum echoed across the ridge, the same resonance as the shard-forged tools of Ashenhold. The fire flared. Tassa whispered, "It accepts him." Val nodded once. "We will send warriors," he said. 3 dozen. And salt trains. No tithe. No tribute. Only blood for bond. Aerin bowed, not as a lord but as a man. And when he returned to Ashenhold, he brought not just soldiers, but stories. And the broken tribes whispered, for the first time in generations, there is a lord who walks barefoot through salt, who bleeds to be trusted. And he burns not to rule, but to build. Chapter 39. Blood, not chains. The fire-born pact was not signed with ink. It was forged in salt, blood, and smoke, under open sky, not a palace roof. When the Dorvani returned to Ashenhold, they came not as vassals, but partners. They brought iron-wrapped carts of ridge salt, obsidian-forged spearheads, and the ashes of their dead to scatter along the harbor winds, an offering, and a warning, they were not conquered. Aerin met them at the edge of the city, dressed not in finery but in the same soot-stained tunic he had worn through the pack-blade rite. Behind him stood Lyra, Morik, and members of the newly formalized Tideborn Guard, weapons sheathed. No banners. No horns. Only a shared silence as two broken peoples regarded each other, and chose to build something from the wreckage. In the central forum, now ringed with scaffolding for a new watchtower, Aerin stood before citizens and newcomers alike and declared, "You are not subjects. You are not tools. You are allies. The pact is simple. You trade your bloodline's strength, your scouts, your warriors, your salt, not for gold or servitude, but for roads, for grain, for healing and dignity. We will build the trade halls together. You will keep your laws, your chieftains, but we will protect one another." There was no applause, but there was acceptance. And in that moment, the fire-born pact was sealed. Not by royalty, not by sword, but by a man who had once knelt in chains, and now offered open hands, calloused and burned. Chapter 40. Riders of the Ash Wind. They came at dusk. Fast and low across the ridgelines, dressed in braided leathers, their faces marked with ash and iron paint. Their horses bore shard-tipped harnesses, trophies from ancient border wars. Their eyes burned with the wary pride of people who had never known peace, only preparation. These were the Ashwind Riders. And they did not kneel, even now. Aerin met them outside the Southwatch gate. They did not speak. Not at first. They circled once, a full formation, hooves silent despite the stone. Then their leader dismounted. She was tall and whip-lean, with hair braided like rope and eyes like flint. "I am Ketha Redwind," she said, "daughter of the Stormblood line. We are not guards. We are not pawns." Aerin nodded. Then be something greater. Be watchers. Be the wall before the storm. He unfurled a map, newly etched by Ashenhold's architects, detailing supply routes, grain store depots, river crossings. I don't want you in my city. I want you beyond it. Watch the roads, the cliffs, the hills. Warn us of what crawls, of what schemes. Defend our edges, not my throne. Ketha studied him a long while. You would give the border to those born outside your gate? Aerin smiled. No one guards home better than those who were once denied one. And so it began. The Ash Wind Riders became legend before their blades ever drew blood. They roamed with no taxes, no orders, only trust and long-term contracts sealed by salt and smoke. Whispers followed them. They ride faster than ravens. They disappear into fog. They found a corpse a week before it died. Their loyalty was not to a man, not to a crown, only to the banner of Ashenhold, and the truth that, here, their fire would be answered with something greater than fear. Respect. Chapter 41: A Spark in the Dark. It began with a silence. The kind not born of stillness, but of anticipation. A pregnant hush in the air, as if the world itself held its breath. Then the sky cracked. Not with thunder, but light, blue-white forks that danced between clouds without ever touching earth. For 5 nights, Red Harbor's skies shimmered with phantom lightning. No storms followed. No rain fell. Only pressure, building like a screen trapped behind glass. At night, the shard forges flickered erratically. Tools powered by relic stone began to hum discordant notes. Automata in the west ward froze mid-task, their eyes pulsing dim violet. The priests of the Flame Temple lit incense thrice a day and whispered of omens they hadn't seen since the War of Riven Skies, a century ago. Aerin watched from the tower, flanked by Lyra and Morik. This isn't natural, Lyra said, voice low. Morik scowled. No storm behaves like this. It's not a storm, Aerin said. It's a signal. That same night, 2 Tideborn scouts vanished during a patrol near the Shard Mines. The only thing found was their camp, and every compass they carried, shattered inward like glass pulled by something beneath the earth. And in the deep ward vault, where the first relic stone hums were catalogued, a scribe drew a rune without meaning to. One he had never seen. One that glowed on the page long after the ink had dried. Chapter 42: The Pale Scholar. He arrived during the 6th night, as the sky turned violet. A single rider in a carriage of black wood and silver runes, drawn by beasts with eyes like molten coin. The guards at Ashenhold's gates raised their blades. He did not flinch. I come unarmed, he said. But not unwatched. They let him through, but the air around him remained wrong. As if reality bent slightly where he stood. Aerin met him in the Echo Hall, standing alone beneath the broken crown banner. No guards. No welcome. The man bowed, slightly. He was clad in layered robes of gray-white and indigo, stitched with arcane sigils. His face was smooth and expressionless, his hair silver-white and tied in cords. His skin was nearly colorless, and his eyes, blank, like moonlit stone. I am called Veyr, scholar of the Third Circle. Envoy of Sylvain's Arcanum. Sylvain sends mages now? Aerin asked, voice cold. Should I be flattered or concerned? Neither, Veyr said. They did not send me. I came because balance requires it. He moved like wind beneath glass, slow, smooth, but never truly still. You've touched things not meant to be stirred. Relics that respond not to will, but to identity. You mean shard relics? Veyr tilted his head. No. I mean the bones beneath them. Aerin narrowed his eyes. Speak clearly. There is something ancient beneath Ashenhold, Veyr said. Your city pulses with more than power, it resonates with memory. Old buried memory. Not all magic is conscious. Some remembers. And some, once remembered, begins to wake. Morik stepped forward. Is this a threat? No, Veyr said softly. It is a warning. And an offer. He unrolled a scroll of shimmering glass paper, covered in glyphs that twisted like smoke. Let me stay. Observe. Record. I will not raise a hand against you unless provoked. I will not spy for Sylvain. I no longer serve their thrones, only their laws of equilibrium. And if we refuse? Aerin asked. Vare smiled. Then the next one who comes will not knock. And they won't bring words. They'll bring fire. Aerin stared at the man for a long moment, reading the calm behind the empty expression. This was no spy. This was a chessboard piece sent from a game no one else could see. And right now, the board was widening. Stay, Aerin said at last. But if you lie to me once, I won't need fire to burn you. Vare bowed again, expression unreadable. Balance is all I seek, Lord of Ash. That night, as the sky flickered silently with unnatural light, Aerin stood alone beneath the tower spire. And whispered, If the past is waking, I'll greet it standing. Chapter 43, The Duel Under Glass. The challenge was issued without insult. No raised voices. No thrown gauntlet. Only a calm statement in the middle of the flame archive, where the walls hummed softly from residual shard energy. I would test your sovereignty, Vare said, placing a smooth, prism-shaped relic on the table between them. No blood. No death. A duel of resonance. Shard to shard. Aerin's fingers stilled on the blueprint he was sketching. Why? To understand you, Vare replied. And so you may understand us. The Arcanum respects only one law, equilibrium. If you are a threat to balance, you will be erased. If not, you may yet become something more. The duel was held in the Hall of Glass, an unfinished dome chamber of polished obsidian mirrors and shard-lit crystal ribs. A space meant for the future council chamber. Tonight, it became a stage. Morik muttered curses from the balcony. A duel with no blades? Feels like a trap. It is, Lyra replied. But not for Aerin. Vare stepped into the circle of light at the center, his fingers flowing through the air in practiced arcs. Lines of violet shardlight flared across the obsidian floor, tracing a circle of pure resonance. His relic pulsed once, sinking to the pattern like a key in a lock. Aerin stepped forward wearing gloves streaked with soot and copper thread. He carried no relic. Only a pouch of wires, a scrap of steel, and a device the size of a dagger hilt strapped to his palm. The crowd whispered, Where's his shard? That's not magic. He's going to die. The rules were clear. One relic. One input. No lethal force. Winner controls the field for 10 seconds of absolute influence. Vare moved first. He flung a pulse into the dome, a shifting illusion of flame and sound, crashing waves of refracted energy twisting the very floor beneath Aerin's feet. The shardlight bent physics. Time itself slowed, warped, then compressed. Aerin blinked. Then smiled. He tapped his palm. A sharp click. From beneath his coat, 6 small shard coils activated, linked via copper filaments to a grounding spike beneath the arena floor. The modified hilt vibrated once, then dispersed the resonance sideways, not blocking the energy, but redirecting it into mirrored paths designed to trap and loop the spell back in on itself. Vare's illusion twisted, then fractured. The entire dome lit up with a dozen afterimages of the mage's own casting, chaotic echoes spiraling out of control, colliding, shattering. Vare staggered. Aerin stepped forward, eyes hard. You fight with rules. I fight with systems. And then he reached up, and collapsed the spell grid with a single switch. The field died in silence. Aerin stood alone in the circle. Chapter 44, Refraction. Vare didn't leave. He simply sat, legs folded beneath him in the central chamber, and watched as Aerin's engineers dismantled the fractured dual grid and hauled the remains into the forges. This wasn't just about spectacle. He murmured as Aerin passed. No, Aerin said. It was about proof of concept. In the days that followed, the broken shards were studied, mapped, and, most importantly, measured. For the first time in centuries, magical resonance was reduced to pattern. The pulse, the refraction, the loop, all captured in arrays of primitive logic switches and pulse-reactive metals. Lyra stood beside a prototype board as it pinged light across 3 copper nodes, then flicked a shard mirror to redirect the signal into a basic loop that triggered a switch. "What is it doing?" she asked. "Thinking," Aerin replied. Shard logic systems were born in that forge, not from spellbooks, but from observation and defiance. They could not cast spells, but they could react, predict, calculate, and someday, replicate. Aerin stared at the boards long into the night, diagrams of circuits scrawled across parchment, equations etched beside them. "The Arcanum makes mages. I'll make engines. Engines anyone can use." When Vare finally spoke again, it was with quiet admiration. "You've done what even arcanists fear." Aerin looked up. "And what's that?" "You've made power transferable. Not born. Not inherited. Built." He smiled, the first true one he'd shown. "You've broken the mirror."